afternoon. I hope I'm audible right up to the back. So, first of all, thank you all for staying back after the lunch session. That's quite appreciative of the whole hall as such. Thanks to the organizing committee for giving me this opportunity. And a special thanks to Professor Mittal for laying the background for my talk. In the morning when he was talking about the patients, this is about the patients. I will be talking about experiences of implementing PREMS. PREMS are patient-reported experience measures in GCC, Gulf Cooperation Council. Disclosures, no financial disclosures. Only thing that I would like to share is most of my images have been created on DAL-E, which is a counterpart of ChatGPT, and there are some images from Google as well. These are the list of abbreviations that I will be using. Again, Dr. Mittal was talking about all the abbreviations that we use. These are the abbreviations that I shall be using. Let's begin with, as I'm talking about the patient-reported experience measures, let's see the power of patient reports. Do we have any anesthesiologist in the audience? If we have, yeah. If we have, I'm sure you are aware of this image, which depicts the first successful demonstration of anesthesia by WTG Morton on 16th October, which is why we celebrate the Anesthesia Day. There was a very unique comment by the surgeon, and he said, "This is no humbug." There is a background to this, because this was first successful, but first demonstration of anesthesia was this one by Horace Wells. The only problem was his patient reported pain, and since then the patient has the power to create history, because this was called as a humbug affair. That was about history. Let's come to the modern organizations. Take any organization in Hyderabad, Dubai, Singapore, wherever you go. These are the departments that work tirelessly to make the patient feel better. And at the end, what does the patient remember? It's billing and accounts. They charge huge amounts to me. I was not very happy with the effort that they put in. If there was one key to change this, it is involving the patients and their families in their own care. That brings us to the concept of value-based care. Value-based care basically offers all these advantages to patients, payers, society, to the providers. What exactly is value-based care? It revolves around the customer, in our case, the patient. It is measured by outcomes and not by inputs of services. In short, I want you to imagine a patient who underwent state-of-the-art technology, robotic surgery for knee replacement. We used a very high-cost implant, and at the end, patient ended up with a surgical site infection, requiring multiple surgeries after this. What is the value that we have given to the patient? Probably zero. And in that case, insurance companies across the world don't pay you. I know many of you are thinking this is not my problem. Let me tell you, the insurance sector in India is likely to grow at 11% per annum for next 5 years. So within next 5 years, it is likely that half of your patients will be insured. And hence, it is important to get that concept right away. So what is value? Value is the outcome that we have given to the patient as well as experience. This is where the experience comes into picture. I want you to imagine Mr. Bond. I'm sure there are lots of Bond fans in this audience as well. So imagine that Mr. Bond attended this CAHOCON. He was very impressed by us, and he decided that I want to undergo a surgery in India. So he visits an orthopedic surgeon, and orthopedic surgeon sends him to the anesthesiologist. Anesthesiologist finds something in his heart, sends him to cardiologist. In effect, Mr. Bond has seen 3 doctors and their nurses, and he has got a lot of complex information. Amount of information was also too much. Number of people who provided the information was again quite a bit. Even if he is Mr. Bond, he has grown old. So he can't remember most of his things. There could be language barrier. And another thing is, imagine Mr. Bond is going for surgery after 3 weeks. What is the likelihood that he will remember the advices that all these 3 doctors and their nurses have given to him? There are scientific studies which show around 40 to 80% of the medical information is forgotten by the patient immediately after your consultation. So Mr. Bond actually feels like him. And that's where we need to involve the patient and family in their own care. What do we, again, scientific evidence, it shows better recall by patients, improved outcomes, improved patient safety, which obviously leads to less litigation, better patient satisfaction, better financial performance, competitive advantage over your competitors, and Mr. Bond will again feel more like this. He will be more in control of the situation. That brings us to PREMS and PREMS. I'm sure the audience already knows it. I won't be going into details of this. Patient-reported outcome measures and patient-reported experience measures. Obviously, the outcome measures are about outcomes. They show the impact of treatment on quality of life. Progression of disease is measured by PROMs. For example, degree of pain relief. A patient has come to you with low back pain, how his disease has progressed. Even chronic diseases, this is a very good measure to measure the outcome. Next is PREMS. That's the patient-reported experience measures. This pertains to the experience of the patient, overall journey through the care episode. It is the perception of the patient about your care. For example, waiting times are large, or I can't see my own lab results. There is a long process to see my own lab results. All these inputs will be generated by patient-reported experience measures. A word more about PREMS. This is a self-reporting instrument, whereas the patient himself is reporting his own experience, his or her own experience. And therefore, it can be used for gaining insights into what actually happens. You might be having the best of policies, best of protocols, best of processes. What actually happens on the ground will be told to you only by your patient. Nobody else will tell you that. That will help us to identify the areas for improvement. It will also help in streamlining the patient journey, assessing the impact of corrective measures. You thought there are some lacunae, some loopholes. How do I improve them? Again, go back to patient, whether those measures are really working. They can also be used for evaluating the communication by our healthcare providers, in coordination of care, access to care, quality of care, responsiveness of healthcare providers, and patient safety. In short, if there was one wonder medication that you have, it is the patient-reported experience measures. Whatever you do, measure it by PREMS, and you will find better results. Now, if you are feeling like this child, lost in a library, I'm not sure where do I start. I want to start with PREMS, but where do I start? There is an easy solution to this. Something like HCAHPS survey, which stands for Hospital Consumer Assessment of Healthcare Providers and Systems Survey. It's a comprehensive survey, 29 questions, which covers care by nurses, doctors, the overall hospital environment. I won't be going into the details of HCAHPS, but this is something that's a ready-made solution for any of you who wants to start implementing PREMS. If you belong to other category, which believes in do-it-yourself, I don't put a doorbell on my door, I put 2 wires, you need to connect those wires to ring a doorbell. Okay, there is a solution for that as well. Building your own questionnaire. If you want to build a questionnaire, American Society of Anesthesiologists has come up with this. It's a very simple, basic thing. Identify the process that you want to improve, pilot a questionnaire, test the pilot questionnaire. If there are any further improvements to be made, make those improvements and roll out the questionnaire. I'm running out of time, so I'll be running through fast. My hospital is based in Dubai, so we get a lot of international patients. This is the distribution of patients for the last 1 year. Our experience started with misinterpretation of guidelines by one of our patients. We had asked the patient to be fasting. She did not understand it properly, and we had to reschedule her surgery. That's when we started to initiate 2 PREMS. One was about perioperative experience, and second one was about MRI experience. Perioperative experience was captured while the patient is waiting for discharge, particularly from the daycare unit, and MRI was at the end of MRI. We use Microsoft Forms for ease of data analysis. So far, we have got 2,394 responses for perioperative PREMS and about 1,145 responses for MRI. There is a specific reason for choosing perioperative, because pre-op and post-op care is very well looked after. The operating room is the one which is a black box. Unless you analyze data, you won't really get information what happens inside the operation theater. That's why we wanted it to hear from the horse's mouth. And the questions included, such as, were you advised about fasting before surgery? Because this is how we started our PREMS journey. Have you been explained about detailed anesthesia plan? all your questions have been answered about surgery. This also acts as a safety net. Patient has signed a consent, but patient also said all my questions were answered here. So if at all you go for litigation, patient can't say I was not explained properly. There are two tools now. Were you involved in surgical site marking? How often did you witness our staff use hand sanitizer? Again, a very silent observer. I'll be going through very quickly. Silent observer for hand hygiene. Clear guidance about discharge medication, advice about wound care at home, advice about follow-up visits. So you are monitoring literally everything, right from your in-house care to continuity of care can be monitored using perioperative PREMS. MRI questionnaire included where you asked about pregnancy, any metal implants or any previous surgeries that you have undergone, avoiding movement during scan, where you told to avoid movement during scan. If you needed any help during the scan, how do you call for help, where you explained that. Did MRI start on time, and if no, what was the delay? Advantages of PREMS, it's direct feedback from our patients. It's the most transparent system. You don't have to rely on incident report or OVR or anything of that sort. It is the patient who reports. It gives immediate feedback. You don't have to wait for a near miss to identify a loophole in your system. It is immediate that patient has identified some loophole and you can rectify it. It improves our proactive communication with the patient, which leads to better patient satisfaction, and it's more of a hands-on management, leading to addressing concerns on time. There are some limitations as well. It's a subjective assessment by the patient. So any previous experience, if he had a very good experience in some other organization, your ranking can go low. It need not be only clinical quality. Your food was not good, still your patient-reported experience measure can go down a bit. That's a slight limitation of PREMS. Data collection challenges can be there. In the afternoon, we spoke about the load that the quality teams have to lift these days. This will add some more work to them. And QMS compatibility needs to be checked. I think that's my last slide. These are my references. I think I finished on time. One take-home message for each one of you. Please listen to your patients. They are our reason for existence. We exist for them. So try and implement these PREMS. Thank you.